Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a feeling that, well, many in long-term relationships might recognize. Shan Yu.
Hmm. It's that Vietnamese term that Thái Linh and Thùy discussed on Vietcetera's Yilan YouTube channel.
Mm.
It kind of means being tired of love or weary, maybe even bored in the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting and what we're diving into is how they look at it, using ideas from like business and investing.
Right. Specifically, this concept of diminishing returns. We've got some excerpts from their conversation where they really draw out those parallels.
So our mission today is to really unpack Shan Yu. What does it really feel like? Is it different from just, falling out of love, here at you?
And maybe most importantly, are there ways to uh, shift things, to look at it differently or actually do something about it?
Okay, let's get into it. So this idea of diminishing returns.
Yeah. Thuyman brings it up. In business, it's when you keep putting more input in time, money, effort, but the output, the result you get back, increases by less and less each time. And she asks, sort of right off the bat, how long does it take before you start seeing that pattern in a relationship?
That does make you think. Because you pour so much energy in at the beginning, right? And those early efforts feel like they make such a huge difference.
They really do. But the idea that maybe down the line, the same kind of effort won't have the same impact, it's a bit unsettling.
But Thái Van Lean offers a different take, which I found really compelling.
Yeah, she suggests that in relationships, maybe the value of the effort actually goes up over time.
Up. How so?
Well, think about those big romantic gestures when you first get together. They're great, but maybe there's also a bit of an expectation there.
Okay, I see that.
But then, fast forward 10 years, just remembering an anniversary when life is absolutely chaotic. That small act can feel incredibly meaningful. It carries the weight of all that shared history.
Right, the history, the consistency, it's not just the act itself, it's what it represents after all that time.
Exactly. So her point really challenges that negative view of diminishing returns in this context. Maybe sustained effort isn't yielding less. Maybe it's building something deeper, like security.
That makes a lot of sense. That feeling of security, knowing someone's still there, still making the effort after years, that's incredibly valuable.
It is. It's that sleeping soundly idea they mentioned. When you have that foundation of trust, it actually encourages you both to keep investing, to keep trying.
They also touch on how, life stages change things, like having young kids.
Oh, absolutely. Your focus shifts, your energy shifts. You can't just keep operating the same way. You have to consciously reprioritize a relationship sometimes.
So if we accept this idea of diminishing returns might feel like it's happening, the big question is, how do you reverse it? How do you stop that slide towards feeling stagnant?
Well, back to the business world analogy.
Okay.
They talk about finding product market fit. Basically, making sure what you're offering actually meets a need so people buy it and you make a profit.
Right. So the relationship version is,
Continuously finding new things to do together, new experiences, new ways to connect, so you're not just doing the same old routine.
because staying the same isn't really an option, is it?
Not really. In business, if you stand still, you fall behind because of inflation, competitors, whatever. In relationships, if you're not growing together, you might be growing apart.
That's a strong point. Thái Van Lean mentioned observing successful long-term couples. She noticed they often seem to have these new shared goals or challenges popping up every few years.
Like what?
Like having another baby or maybe moving house, planning a big trip, things that force them to work together, to pull in the same direction again.
Creates a new shared focus, a new project almost.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the emotional side of things, the actual feeling of it all.
Right, because relationships often start with that really intense phase, don't they? The honeymoon period or what they call the heroin phase.
Yeah, those big emotions. But they also say that naturally mellows out after, 6 months or so?
Typically, yeah. And that's maybe where the risk comes in. If you're not consciously paying attention, life just starts pulling you in different directions. Work, kids, other commitments.
And you can just sort of drift without realizing it.
Precisely. Which is why actively prioritizing your partner is so important, not just assuming they'll always be there no matter what.
Especially when big life changes hit, like pregnancy or becoming parents for the first time, the focus naturally shifts, and that requires, a lot of communication.
So much communication and understanding, recognizing, okay, things feel different right now, and actually talking about why in what you both need.
Ty Van Lean shared something personal there, didn't she? About feeling like she wasn't quite the same person her husband married after having kids due to hormones and just everything changing.
Yeah, and how crucial it was for them to talk directly about it so he could understand what she was going through. It wasn't about him, it was about the changes she was experiencing.
Which brings us to actually identifying and talking about Sean Yu. Who usually notices it first?
Their conversation suggested it's often women. Maybe, and this is just speculation based on their chat, due to being more attuned to emotional shifts, or perhaps just more willing to bring it up.
But how do you even start that conversation? It feels so delicate.
Very. They stress the importance of positive reinforcement in general. Making sure you're regularly sharing appreciation and joy, not just bringing up problems.
So it's not all negative feedback.
Exactly. And when you do talk about feeling bored or weary, avoid those blunt, hurtful statements, like, I'm bored with you.
Oof, yeah. That probably wouldn't go over well.
Probably not. The suggestion is to focus on actionable things. Frame it as wanting to find ways to improve things together, suggesting new activities, changes in routine.
Almost like giving constructive feedback at work, like they mentioned, focusing on improvement, not just criticism.
Kinda, yeah. It's about enabling positive change and really actively looking for things you both still enjoy doing together, making time for that shared fun.
And valuing the friendship aspect too, right? Not just the romance.
Definitely. Seeing your partner as your friend, someone you actually like spending time with, beyond the romantic stuff.
Okay, so then they bring up diversification, another investment term.
Right. But Ty Von Lean was very clear. In relationships, this does not mean seeing other people.
Phew. Okay, good clarification. So what does it mean?
It's about diversifying your shared experiences, trying new things together, but also, crucially, respecting each other's individual lives and interests.
Ah, so it's about balance, having your own separate lives, but also making sure you have quality time together, doing different kinds of things.
Exactly. Because maybe the simple things you love doing together at the start, like just watching a movie, don't feel as special anymore. You might need to be more intentional about finding new ways to connect.
And the warning sign is when couples just stop trying, when they don't feel like finding new things together anymore.
Yeah, that lack of effort, that apathy, can be a real red flag. It might signal that one or both partners are kind of, giving up on actively nurturing the connection.
Okay, let's talk about the investor role. They frame the partner as someone you're investing in.
Yeah, like when you invest in a company, you're initially investing in the founders, the people. Same in a relationship, you're investing in that person.
And just like companies need to adapt to survive.
Relationships need that too. Adaptability, flexibility, a willingness to change and evolve together. You can't expect things or people to stay exactly the same forever.
They also raise an interesting point about personal growth within the relationship. Like, are you becoming a better version of yourself because of your partner?
Right. Not changing for them in a fundamental way, but being open to their positive influence, growing together.
And encouraging each other's growth, too. They had that example, like a professor encouraging their business-minded partner to read more literature and vice versa.
Yeah, focusing on the merit of the suggestion itself, not just who it's coming from. Can this help me grow?
So let's get practical. What are some actual proactive things couples can do if they feel that Sean Yu creeping in?
Well, one really cool idea they shared was about sharing unrealized dreams.
Okay.
This couple, over 40, made a list of things they'd always individually wanted to do but never had, and then they started doing them together.
Like the example of the professor and the military guy taking up skateboarding.
Exactly. It's about finding new adventures together, even if the initial desire was individual.
That really drives home the difference between being bored with the routine versus being bored with the person.
Absolutely. And they also acknowledge that sometimes the feeling isn't even about the relationship directly. External stress, work pressure, health issues, hormonal changes can heavily impact how you feel in the relationship.
Right, spills over.
It does. So learning to compartmentalize a bit can help. Managing stress from work so it doesn't poison your home life, for example. Ty Van Lean talked about being fully present wherever she is.
Consciously switching focus. That takes practice.
It does. And also being mindful of how much you share about your stressors. Sometimes your partner has capacity to listen, sometimes they don't. And feeling shut out, like if a partner can't share big parts of their life due to work secrecy, that can create distance too.
Okay, another big theme. Comparison. An opportunity cost.
Yes. The human tendency to look around, compare, wonder, what if?
The whole grass is greener thing. An opportunity cost. thinking about the other potential partners or life paths you're not experiencing because you're in this relationship.
It's natural to have those thoughts occasionally, but they also bring up sunk cost all the time and energy you've already put in.
So it's this tricky balance, respecting the past investment versus recognizing if the future just looks stagnant.
Right. When does acknowledging some costs just keep you stuck? Thai Van Lean even shared her own experience, realizing a past long-term relationship had been stagnant for too long, despite the years invested.
It really emphasizes the need to talk about feeling stuck. Is there potential here to improve, or are we just going through the motions?
Yeah, like they said, you can handle short, intense projects if there's an end goal. But endless, low-level stagnation, that's really draining.
They also normalize just feeling bored sometimes, even with people you love deeply, like your spouse or even your kids.
Totally normal. Fleeting moments of, oh, you're driving me crazy, are different from a deep, persistent dissatisfaction.
They had that funny but also sad story about the couple with the round bed.
Oh yeah, trying to force physical closeness. It didn't work. They still broke up. It just shows that proximity isn't the same as connection.
So what is the breaking point usually? It's often not one huge thing.
Often not. It's more like a slow buildup. Unmet needs, a feeling that one person isn't trying anymore, a lack of partnership.
Like Tyven Lean's observation about her divorced friends, sometimes it came down to feeling like they weren't a team in daily life. Like one person wasn't pulling their weight with chores or responsibilities.
Small things that become symbolic of a bigger imbalance, and then some seemingly minor issue becomes the last straw.
Because the underlying foundation was already weak, it really comes back to that idea of continued effort, doesn't it?
It really does. When one partner noticeably stops trying, stops investing, that can often signal the beginning of the end. When individual goals consistently take precedence over shared ones.
So thinking like that lead investor in your relationship.
Yeah. If you, as the investor, start to feel the venture has no future potential, well, that's a serious sign.
And that connects back to the you idea, right? That moment you start noticing other potential investments, other people.
Exactly. The boredom, the feeling of stagnation can fuel that sense of opportunity cost and make alternatives look more appealing.
So how do we deal with comparison and this feeling of chán in a healthy way?
Well, first, figure out why you're comparing. Is it just a fleeting thought? Or is it rooted in real dissatisfaction? Are your needs actually not being met?
So understanding the source of the comparison, is it emotional or more rational?
Right. And Ty Van Lean's example was great, getting annoyed about groceries, but then realizing, okay, maybe I'm overthinking, and he does help when I actually ask clearly.
Yeah, that self-awareness piece. Avoiding assumptions. Recognizing you might think differently about things.
And communicating clearly. Don't let small annoyances fester and become huge resentments.
And before you jump to, I'm just bored with this relationship, maybe ask yourself, have I actually tried to change the dynamic? Have I suggested new things? Have I communicated my feelings constructively?
Exactly. Give your partner a chance to respond. You might actually be surprised.
Wow, okay. This has been a really rich discussion. Lots to unpack from their conversation about Sean Yu.
Definitely. I think the main thing is that it's complex. It's not just a simple feeling you react to immediately. It needs some thought.
Yeah, thoughtful introspection, looking at your own feelings, your own actions, not just pointing fingers.
And it keeps coming back to communication, finding those shared experiences, and being willing to adapt and grow.
Mhm.
To-
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is feeling Sean Yu, at some point almost, inevitable in really long relationships?
That's a deep question.
And if it is, what really works long term to navigate it? To not just get through it, but to actually use it to find a deeper connection.
That's the million-dollar question, is it? Something for everyone listening to think about in their own context.
And interestingly, I hear the next Yulan episode is actually about the flip side of falling in love.
Oh, that should be fascinating. A totally different energy, but maybe just as complex. A good contrast to today's deep dive.